They brought you here because they believe you're cursed, the old gatekeeper whispered as the towering black gates groaned open. The tragedy is that they never asked what your curse was protecting. Evelyn Hart tightened her fingers around the worn linen cloak draped across her shoulders as cold evening rain soaked the muddy road beneath her boots. At 23, she had spent her entire life hearing the same whispers whenever she walked through the village square. Crops failed because of Evelyn. Livestock wandered away because of Evelyn. Children caught fevers because she had looked their way. Every misfortune found its way back to the quiet girl with silver-gray eyes and the strange birthmark curling across her collarbone like a faded crescent moon. No one remembered how the rumors had started. They simply became truth because enough frightened people repeated them. For years, Evelyn had survived by lowering her eyes, speaking softly, and helping anyone who would accept her kindness, even when that kindness was returned with suspicion instead of gratitude. She mended broken fences without being asked. She carried water for elderly neighbors whose own children never visited. She quietly left fresh bread outside lonely homes. It was almost peaceful in its certainty. Evelyn understood before anyone spoke. She smiled anyway. It was a small smile, gentle enough to comfort the elderly woman standing nearby who had quietly cried into her apron. "I'll go," Evelyn had said before anyone could force the words upon her. No family should lose someone they still love. The sentence shattered something inside several people watching, but none of them stepped forward to stop her. By sunset, she rode alone inside a weathered carriage climbing narrow mountain roads toward the castle everyone feared but few had ever seen. Two silent rows of vampire nobles stood motionless along the crimson carpet, each dressed in elegant dark robes embroidered with silver thread. Their faces were impossibly calm, yet their eyes followed her with unmistakable curiosity. Some looked confused. Others looked uneasy. None of them looked surprised that a human girl had arrived. It was as though they had been expecting someone, but not someone like her. At the far end of the hall, beneath an ancient throne sculpted from obsidian stone, sat King Lucian Ashcroft. He did not wear an extravagant crown. Instead, a simple circlet of black metal rested against his pale hair, giving him an air of effortless authority. His face was almost unnaturally fair beneath the candlelight, his expression unreadable, his posture perfectly still. He did not resemble the terrifying monster whispered about in village stories. His voice carried no anger, only quiet authority. Evelyn obeyed. Their eyes met. She expected coldness. Instead, she saw something stranger. Recognition. As though he had seen those eyes somewhere impossibly long ago. The silence stretched until one elderly council member finally cleared his throat. "Your Majesty," the man said carefully. "The village records identify this human as cursed since birth. It would be wise to proceed with caution." Several nobles nodded in agreement. Evelyn lowered her eyes again, already familiar with where such conversations always ended. Yet Lucian asked only one question. Who declared her cursed? The council member hesitated. "The villagers, according to generations of testimony." "That was not my question." Lucian's calm voice somehow became even quieter. "Who witnessed this curse with their own eyes?" No one answered. One noble shifted uncomfortably. Another looked toward the floor. The silence itself became the answer. Lucian slowly turned back toward Evelyn. "Have you ever harmed anyone?" he asked. She blinked, surprised. "No, Your Majesty." "Have you ever wished harm upon anyone?" "Never." He studied her face for another long moment, as though weighing every heartbeat. Then, without another word, he stepped aside from the throne and gestured toward the center of the hall. Confused, Evelyn obeyed. As she walked forward, her sleeve accidentally brushed. The ancient crown rested peacefully beneath Evelyn's trembling fingertips as though nothing extraordinary had happened. But every vampire inside the throne hall understood they had just witnessed something impossible. For countless generations, the relic had remained cold and lifeless. Kings had inherited kingdoms. Queens had been remembered only in forgotten songs. Yet the crown had never answered anyone. Until now. Evelyn immediately pulled her hand away. "I am sorry," she whispered, taking one uncertain step backward. "I did not mean to touch it." Her apology echoed softly across the chamber. She expected someone to accuse her of disrespect. Instead, dozens of noble eyes remained fixed on the crown itself. An elderly woman wearing deep blue robes slowly approached the pedestal. Her silver hair flowed almost to her waist, and the golden medallion around her neck marked her as the royal keeper of history. She carefully examined the crimson crystal, then looked toward King Lucian with visible disbelief. "Your Majesty," she said quietly, "the Heartstone has awakened." Murmurs spread through the nobles like wind through autumn leaves. Some whispered prayers beneath their breath. Others shook their heads, refusing to believe what they had seen. One young lord stepped forward, his elegant features tightened by suspicion. "This cannot be real," he declared. "She is human." Never answered the endless questions hidden inside old prophecies locked away beneath the castle library. Yet it had answered Evelyn without hesitation. Lucian carefully extended one hand toward the crimson crystal. The light had already faded, leaving only a faint warmth lingering beneath the polished silver. He turned toward the royal keeper. "When was the last recorded awakening?" The elderly woman closed her eyes, searching memories older than most kingdoms. According to the First Chronicle, nearly 1,000 years ago, on the day Queen Seraphine accepted the crown of Dawn. Another wave of uneasy whispers swept through the hall. The name had not been spoken publicly for generations. Most believed she belonged only to myths told beside winter fireplaces. Lucian remained silent. His thoughts drifted toward a forgotten chamber beneath the castle where faded murals covered stone walls untouched by sunlight. One painting had haunted him for centuries. It showed a queen standing beside an ancient king beneath a silver crown illuminated by crimson light. The ancient archive has opened by itself. Across the throne hall, every candle flame flickered at the same instant, and somewhere beneath the castle, a door that had remained sealed for 1,000 years slowly began to unlock. The final echo of the ancient bell faded into an uneasy silence as King Lucian turned without another word and walked toward a narrow passage hidden behind the throne. The royal keeper immediately followed, gathering the edges of her blue robes while several members of the council exchanged uncertain glances before hurrying after them. Evelyn hesitated. She had no place among kings, scholars, or ancient mysteries. Yet one of the royal guards quietly stepped beside her and offered a respectful nod. "His Majesty wishes for you to come as well." She looked behind her, expecting someone else to answer instead, but there was no one. Slowly, she followed the procession through dim stone corridors untouched by daylight. The deeper they descended beneath the castle, the cooler the air became. Evelyn followed carefully, her footsteps echoing across polished stone. The chamber beyond was smaller than she expected. There were no shelves, no treasures, no weapons. Only portraits, dozens of them. Every painting depicted queens from different centuries standing beside vampire kings beneath the same silver crown. Some smiled gently. Others carried expressions filled with quiet determination. Every portrait seemed connected by an invisible thread stretching across time itself. Evelyn wandered forward almost without realizing it. Something drew her toward the oldest painting hanging alone upon the far wall. Unlike the others, its colors had faded with age. The king's face remained clear, but the woman's features had nearly vanished beneath centuries of wear. Only the outline of her figure remained visible. Evelyn stopped in front of it. "It feels lonely," she whispered. The royal keeper looked at her with surprise. "Lonely?" Evelyn nodded slowly, as though someone wanted people to remember the king, but forget the queen. Silence settled over the chamber. No one answered. The elderly woman stepped closer to the painting, her eyes widening little by little. "Your Majesty," she breathed. "She is correct." Lucian turned toward her. "Explain." The woman staring back from the ancient canvas did not merely resemble her. She looked exactly like her, as though centuries had never passed at all, and King Lucian found himself unable to look away. For several long seconds no one spoke. The restored portrait seemed almost alive beneath the soft silver light filling the ancient archive. Every delicate feature matched Evelyn with impossible precision, from the gentle curve of her smile to the quiet determination resting within her silver-gray eyes. Even the faded crescent-shaped mark near the queen's collarbone appeared in exactly the same place. Evelyn instinctively stepped backward. "That cannot be me," she whispered. "I have never been here before today." Her voice carried no excitement, only honest confusion. King Lucian continued studying the painting without blinking. During more than 3 centuries upon the throne, he had uncovered countless legends, forgotten prophecies, and stories disguised as myths. None had ever answered the question that haunted every ruler before him. Some nobles believed Evelyn should remain under royal protection until the mystery could be understood. Others insisted she should be sent far away before more ancient relics awakened. A few quietly suggested sealing the archive once again and pretending none of this had happened. Evelyn listened without interrupting. She recognized the pattern immediately. Once again, strangers discussed her future while she remained invisible within the conversation itself. She lowered her eyes, not from fear this time, but from sadness. She had hoped life inside the castle might be different from the village she had left behind. Instead, she discovered that titles and elegant robes did not always change human nature. King Lucien finally raised one hand. The chamber fell silent at once. Has anyone asked what she wants? The question caught everyone off guard. The council members looked at one another without speaking. No one had considered it. Lucien turned toward Evelyn. Tell me honestly, if these doors opened today and you were free to leave without consequence, where would you go? Hidden behind it, untouched by time, rested a narrow stone alcove containing a single leather-bound book wrapped in silver chains. Across its weathered cover, letters that had been invisible only moments before slowly appeared in glowing crimson script. The royal keeper stared at the title, and her voice trembled with astonishment. The Chronicle of the First Queen. It has been waiting for Evelyn to arrive. The silver chains wrapped around the ancient book loosened one link at a time, without a single hand touching them. A gentle metallic sound echoed through the hidden chamber until the final clasp slipped free and rested quietly against the stone alcove. No one moved. The Chronicle of the First Queen had remained sealed for nearly 1,000 years according to every known record, yet now it opened as effortlessly as though it had merely been waiting for its rightful reader. The weathered pages turned slowly by themselves before stopping near the middle of the book. Soft crimson letters shimmered across the parchment, appearing line after line until the faded ink became perfectly clear. The royal keeper stepped forward and carefully read the ancient language aloud. Even he could not ignore that every sentence seemed to describe the young woman standing quietly beside the portrait. Evelyn looked down at the open book with uncertainty. I do not understand any of this, she admitted softly. I have never studied ancient history. I have never wanted a throne. I only wanted to live peacefully. King Lucien watched her carefully. Every answer she gave seemed to remove another layer of doubt instead of adding ambition. If she had sought power, she would have claimed destiny immediately. Instead, she questioned every miracle surrounding her. History is returning, she whispered. Before anyone could absorb what they had witnessed, a royal messenger hurried into the archive, breathing hard from the long descent. He knelt before King Lucien and spoke with urgency. Your Majesty, delegates from the 7 noble houses have arrived unexpectedly. They have learned about the awakening of the crown, and they are demanding an emergency gathering of the royal court. They say the human girl must stand before every house before sunrise. By the time the first pale light of dawn touched the highest towers of Blackthorn Castle, the Grand Royal Court was already filled beyond capacity. Representatives from the 7 noble houses occupied their ancient seats beneath towering banners embroidered with silver. Evelyn looked around the hall before lowering her eyes for a brief moment. When she finally answered, her voice remained calm and sincere. Nothing. Confused whispers immediately spread across the chamber. Cashin frowned. Nothing. Evelyn nodded. I do not understand why these things have happened around me. I cannot explain the crown or the archive. I never wished to become important. If possible, I only hope no one suffers because of me. Several nobles exchanged uncertain looks. Her answer did not fit the arguments they had prepared. One elderly duchess quietly observed Evelyn's worn sleeves and simple boots before asking gently, if His Majesty offered you any reward you desired, what would you ask for? Evelyn hesitated, almost embarrassed. There is an old woman in my village whose roof leaks every spring. She cannot repair it herself anymore. If someone could help her before the next storm, I would be grateful. Complete silence followed. Unlike ordinary keys, this one carried the same crescent symbol that appeared upon Evelyn's collarbone. Attached to it was a narrow strip of aged parchment containing only one handwritten sentence. The royal keeper's voice trembled as she read it aloud. When she chooses kindness even after the world rejects her, place this key in her hand. and the final door will reveal who she truly is. The words written upon the ancient parchment lingered in the silent chamber long after the royal keeper lowered it with trembling hands. No one reached for the silver key. No one questioned the message. Every noble present understood that another piece of a forgotten history had just returned. Evelyn stared at the small key resting inside the wooden box, uncertain why something so ordinary could suddenly feel so heavy. King Lucien stepped forward first. He lifted the key carefully, studying the delicate crescent engraved into its handle. The symbol matched the birthmark near Evelyn's collarbone perfectly, as though both had been crafted by the same forgotten hand. Without speaking, he held the key toward her. Evelyn hesitated. "Your Majesty, I do not know if I should." It was said that only the last missing piece of the royal legacy could reveal its entrance. Lord Cashin slowly rose from his seat. Unlike the day before, there was no accusation in his expression, only uncertainty mixed with reluctant respect. "Perhaps," he admitted quietly, "we have spent generations guarding history without truly understanding it." King Lucien turned toward the assembled court. His voice remained steady, carrying naturally through the vast hall. "No one will enter that chamber except those chosen to witness its truth." None of the nobles objected. As Evelyn approached, the crown slowly lifted from the pedestal by itself. Every witness watched in complete silence while it drifted gently through the warm air before stopping directly in front of King Lucien. He looked at the crown for a long moment, then turned toward Evelyn. Without hesitation, he accepted the ancient crown in both hands, stepped closer to the young woman the world had once called cursed, and before the assembled witnesses declared with quiet certainty, "Kings may receive tribute from kingdoms, but destiny has brought me something far greater. Before history, before this crown, and before every soul gathered here, I recognize Evelyn Hart as the rightful queen beside my throne." For a long moment Evelyn could not speak. The ancient crown rested gently in King Lucien's hands, reflecting the warm golden light that filled the hidden chamber. She looked at the faces surrounding her, expecting disbelief, protest, or fear. Instead, she saw something she had never received before: hope. The royal keeper lowered her head with quiet reverence. One by one, the witnesses followed. Even Lord Cashin, whose doubts had challenged every step of her journey, slowly placed one hand across his heart and bowed. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "I was wrong to judge what I did not understand." Evelyn looked at him with the same kindness she had shown everyone else since arriving at the castle. The crimson gemstone shimmered once before releasing a soft circle of light that spread across the living trees surrounding the chamber. Their branches blossomed instantly with white flowers that had not bloomed for centuries. Tiny streams flowing beneath the roots became crystal clear. The warm air filled with the gentle fragrance of spring, even though snow still covered the mountains beyond the castle walls. The royal keeper opened the chronicle one final time. New words quietly appeared upon its last empty page. She smiled through grateful tears as she read them aloud. "The kingdom shall know its queen not by the throne she receives, but by the hearts she restores. When kindness returns to the palace, history itself shall remember its forgotten name." As the final sentence faded into the parchment, the chronicle slowly closed by itself. Outside, bells across Blackthorn Castle began ringing one after another without anyone pulling their ropes. Yet the kindness in her eyes had never changed. Lucien looked across his kingdom before turning toward the woman standing beside him. "The world believed it had sent me a curse," he said quietly. Evelyn smiled with gentle warmth. "Sometimes fear simply gives the wrong name to hope." Far below the castle, hidden beneath the oldest roots of the mountain, rows of forgotten stone guardians slowly opened their eyes for the first time in 1,000 years. They did not awaken for war, nor for conquest. They awakened because the kingdom finally recognized the queen history had never lost, only forgotten. And from that day forward, people no longer remembered the girl as cursed. They remembered that even the coldest kingdom had been transformed by the quiet courage of one kind heart.